Hi guys, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel and welcome to yet another episode of the podcast. This one is a monstrosity. So the reason is why this guy is this long is that, well, first of all, we had a long weekend in Canada and in Ontario. I'm pretty sure I have to specify because it seems like different provinces have sometimes different long weekends. Anywho, it was a long weekend, so we had Friday off, Saturday off, and Sunday off, so 3 days of blissful drawing for me, and it combined with the fact that I actually was in a very drawy mood, as you probably could tell in the maybe one episode before. I was in a little bit, not like of a slump, like, I don't know, something just, maybe I overworked myself. This is the conclusion I came up with last time. But this time, what actually happened is that I was in amazing drawing mood. I really wanted to draw. I wanted nothing more than to draw. I was able to, not like I was able, I didn't have to commit to a lot of like social stuff. I didn't have to, meet any of my friends because it also coincided with more harsh lockdown, which is, it's difficult really. Most of the days I really hate all of these lockdowns and I feel like I'm really cooked up in my head and I feel like I want to interact with people, but I also cannot deny that it's really great for my drawing and creative aspect, because when I'm creating, when I'm drawing, when I'm recording videos or recording even this podcast, I really want to be left alone and want not to be bothered. And any social, stuff really gives me not like anxiety, honestly, but just nervousness and feeling that I don't want to do it, feeling like this feeling like I'd rather do another thing that I really want to do, and it just feels like a chore that you need to do. And if you can avoid it, you try to. So, but for me, it's always a combination. If I'm in a really good drawing mood, I don't want to see people. I just want to draw. I just want to spend time with my drawing, or at least I have to do it for a couple of days, and then I feel like I can start combining it with social life and whatnot. But this weekend, two things coincided. Is that huge, I didn't have any social arrangement. I had all the time for myself to be locked down in my place that is perfectly designed for all creative needs that I want, and I didn't have to spend time on anything else but drawing. And I also was in a great drawing mood, and I had 3 days instead of 2 for the weekend drawing. So that's why this podcast is super long. And the thing, since it is very long, a couple of things that I'm doing and adjusting here. I was thinking how to approach this. First of all, the video that you are currently seeing, I usually speed up 4 times. This time is sped up 5 times, because if I kept the same level of speeding upness, it would be like abnormally long. And you guys, I don't know, do you guys need that? I don't know. Does it, would you prefer longer or shorter videos? I don't know. I personally like super long videos on YouTube, but it's me. I'm weird. But so that one is a little faster. However, I'm not trying to make it super fast, because the thing with speed with the video, it's gonna be challenging, because if you speed up too fast, what happens is that camera also speeds up all the movements that I do on my drawing canvas, quote unquote, is that I start jumping around the canvas, I just flipping, changing files very fast, moving around the file very fast, and it's difficult for the eye, so I cannot speed up too much. So there's always this gap where it's either this is as slow as you can go and as fast as you can go with speeding up your drawing recording. But today I'm going with a little bit faster one. And another thing that I'm gonna do about it is that I'm gonna talk throughout the whole thing. I'm gonna have a topic that I want to talk to you about, and overall I'm gonna talk to you about productivity and motivation and this thing overall, because every time I talk to other artists who potentially have problems, or I don't know, anybody who I try to help with advices that I'm doing here, or anybody, any artist that I'm talking to who are struggling maybe sometimes with their art, most of the times the problem is that I'm hearing is that they're for some reason not feeling motivated enough, not feeling like they can stick with the project for a long time, or they can finish things. So they lacking motivation and they feel like they're not productive, they feel like they're lazy, and overall they just feel not motivated enough to stick with the project. They feel inspired, but they might not necessarily feel motivated to complete it. So this is kind of the area where a lot of artists that I talk to who struggle with something struggle with. So I'm gonna have this kind of talk overall. So I'm gonna have a theme for this podcast, because it will be really difficult, I think, to just go through the whole thing just by discussing what I'm drawing, even though I will be drawing some interesting things here. But overall, we already seen several podcasts of mine, and some things will be repeating. However, I'm trying to keep them different all the time. So anyway, for this podcast, we have an overlapping theme, but I also will be still commenting on about like everything that I'm drawing still. If I'm drawing something that is unusual to what I'm, didn't mention before in previous podcasts, like I want to give some remarks, some note, or some comment on whatever I'm doing on the screen, I will pause and do that. However, I will have an overlapping theme. However, I want to mention one little thing, because, I want to share it with somebody, and I don't know who to share it with, but this is a weird thing that happens every time I'm recording the podcast. I try not to edit them, so that's why I'm able to record something this long, so I don't really do crazy editing. Usually I just edit out longer gaps, or if I'm really said something like really strangely. But as you can notice, this podcast is pretty chill. If I'm making some, miswording, or I'm saying something strange, I just keep it in, because in the next line I usually just say, oh, sorry, I meant that and that. So they're more chill ones. So it's literally me sitting in my sweats, in my headphones, looking scarier than I normally do in my stand-up videos, and just recording. But the one thing that I keep editing out, and I have to stop to edit out, is the fact that I'm yawning a lot when I'm recording my podcast. I have no idea why is it happening. Every time I start recording a podcast, literally 3 minutes in, I would have to have a major yawn break. I just can't help it, and I don't know what it is at all. It's not like I'm sleepy or something like this. It's not like I'm tired. It's not like I'm bored. It's like just when I start recording and I start filming, and as I start looking at my screen recording and commenting on top of it, for some reason I just start having those yawns. Like, see, this one is coming up again. This is something that I cut out a lot. I'm not sure why. It might be something, there must be some scientific reason why I'm doing it. I'm usually not a yawner. I just don't usually yawn. It usually doesn't happen to me, but when I'm recording my podcast, I just yawn. So I don't know. I just thought I'd share it with you guys, because I need to share it. If you have thoughts and ideas of why it might be happening, please let me know. It's just curious, weird thing. So for now, I'm just gonna actually comment on what I'm drawing right now. So for this panel, I actually changed my mind from when I was setting up lines. When I was setting up drawing lines for this particular panel, I had those two characters that I was just drawing like a couple seconds ago standing in front, and they were using magic. We're gonna be adding actually very fun effect in the scene. Like, we're gonna actually draw some magic effects, and I'm probably gonna make a whole other videos of how you can Photoshop different effects that you can do. But then I realized, well, before I thought that effect gonna be so bright, and so we're not gonna see basically something that is behind them, and we have my protagonist behind him. So I thought I don't need to draw him, because effect gonna kind of cover him. So then I realized it's not gonna be as good. I still have to have him behind looking somewhat good. So we're gonna see his silhouette popping through the effects. But yeah, so this guy, actually I didn't have lines for him, so you actually can see a comparison of I was drawing those two characters before starting with lines and then shaded them out, and you can see how I'm drawing this particular character with no lines to begin with. And actually overall you can notice that the way I'm using the lines, I'm not really using them super much as a guideline. So I personally, if you ask me which way I prefer to draw, I will pretty confidently tell you that I prefer drawing with no lines whatsoever, or very extremely rough lines to just kind of point where the character is. I actually find that the drawing actually looks better if I'm not using lines as base. If I'm actually started drawing from a solid color, and I'm starting to drawing from a colors already, and I actually have a couple of videos on this channel talking about this technique, but this is kind of what I personally noticed. And as you can see, I successfully draw the character without lines at all. So technically, I do not need them when I'm drawing. They do not really improve the quality at all. And actually, if you ask me, again, I feel like when I'm drawing from color with no lines whatsoever, the quality is better. Things are more put together, if I may say so. But it's all the colors are blending better. I'm not trying to put certain color somewhere just because the line said I should put it there, and I'm not using also line as a guide for the proportions. And with lines, what I also notice, if I create a character with lines, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it at some point in some other podcast previously, is that I feel like if I create the line, in the line, certain proportions look better one way, but then when you draw it in color, sometimes you actually start noticing some proportions are not super right. And as you can try it, you can actually just take a photo and outline it with a pen, like actually just put it in your Photoshop file and create another layer and just draw pen on the different edges of the photograph of the person, and then make the photo invisible. The lines that you will have, they will look really, really wrong for the lines. So it's like the rules, how the lines work just when they're lines alone, and the way, you know, proportions work when it's filled in with color, they're different. So yeah, I just feel like it's very fast if I'm drawing from a solid color. The reason why I'm using lines, however, is to create certain level of consistency. And this is some problem that I actually had in chapter 2. In chapter 2, if you've been around for this channel and you hear me talk about chapter 2, you know that chapter 2 gave me a lot of problems, and I'm actually redrawing it. I've already redrawn it by this time. Is it because at that point I was not really sure what I'm doing, and I've been going from doing my comic black and white with lines and to making my comic in color, and never drew something in color. And my technique by this point was just drawing with color with no lines really. But then I started drawing the comic, and I realized when you don't have some lines and you have some lines as a guide, and you cannot have like a certain color basis, and you're not following certain reference board, it's start becoming unpredictable. You're not really sure how your panel gonna come out, which is in some way exciting, and that's why it's really nice when you're drawing just a painting. This is part of the excitement when you're drawing with color only. It's some mystery of what drawing is gonna be like by the time you're done. However, when you're working on a comic, you don't want to have this feeling. You want to actually be pretty sure that the next panel is going to look certain way, because your whole comic's supposed to look certain way, and each panel's supposed to look like each other. And especially if characters are in the same location, you have to make sure all the panels from this location actually look like just different angles from this location, and people should be able to recognize it really well. And at the same time, all the characters should look really, really consistent, and not in like artistic way, oh, you can assume it is the same person. But your reader should immediately pinpoint that, yeah, this is the same character. Even they only saw like 2 or 3 panels of this character, they should immediately recognize. So that's kind of the problem that I ran in with chapter 2, is that every time I would draw with, you know, my standard technique when I'm drawing from color, I couldn't guarantee the process that in the end it will look exactly how I need to. And I ended up reworking a lot of the panels again and again and again, because my own technique would give me trouble. So, but it's really great technique overall for drawing something that you know, you may be not sure the shape of. Like, this is the technique I use to draw monsters that are called firstborns in the comic. I will show you guys drawing them at some point, maybe even this episode we're going to touch up on them. I just wanted to showcase that for me, just drawing lines, they create this mentally and literally feeling of boundary of what I can or cannot do. However, as you can see, I really don't need them to draw. I can draw the character just as well without any lines. But I suggest you guys play and try around and, you know, discover your own way. And I would overall recommend not to rely on lines too much, unless of course your style is very 2D based, and this is where lines are very important. But other than this, yeah, I thought I just gonna mention this on the channel, because this is something interesting, I suppose, that I did on this channel that I wanted to elaborate on. So now let's talk about some motivational stuff. And the thing is, when I'm talking to people about motivation, is there is actually just one word that can encapsulate a lot of different reasons why people are not drawing. And literally a lot of them are mental. And I also feel like our own brain does sabotage ourselves a lot. And sometimes when you're saying, oh, I just don't feel motivated, it's not really motivation that you're lacking. Potentially sometimes it is, but a lot of the times it's you almost mentally self-sabotaging. And there is a lot of things to unpack. There are a lot of things that can be causing it. To me, first, let's start with the first reason that immediately comes to mind, is that I notice with a lot of younger artists, or a lot of, maybe younger artists, not the ones who are doing this professionally, like myself, like their entire life, but the ones who definitely have the talent, the calling, and the interest. The thing is that they are conditioned to follow inspiration before everything else. And I personally, again, if you've been around this channel for a while, you know that I have major problems with things like talent and inspiration. So these people are actually assuming that inspiration is the main driving force behind drawing something. And I think they also tend to have a wrong misconception about art. They tend to think that art is something that you just love doing, you start doing and you cannot stop. Is, you know, something that is super, super easy, something that you can't help but just do. And they probably get it from other artists, like for example myself. Probably, you know, just looking at my videos, you probably can assume, oh, she draws all the time. It's probably like so amazing, and she really enjoys the whole thing of it. It's just, you know, she can't help but draw. And it's true. All of those aspects are true, but it doesn't mean it's still not hard work, and it still doesn't mean that it demands discipline. It's a weird combination of, yeah, I absolutely love drawing, I absolutely love what I'm doing. Like when I'm drawing, like I'm happy, I'm genuinely, again, maybe this is the wrong word, I'm not like happy, I'm content, I'm at peace, I feel very relaxed, I just feel right, I just feel good. That's the feeling. It's not like ecstatic, insane emotion. It's just very calm, content, feeling very soothing. So this is what I feel. However, feeling that doesn't mean there is no work, there is no energy being spent there, there is no focus being put there, there is no discipline that makes me go and sit and draw every day. It doesn't mean that I have like I develop like a pattern around me drawing. It's not like, it basically means that I know I have to draw. I know I have to open Photoshop and start drawing. So those things, I guess, people who are like artists and they do art professionally or just very seriously, this is the things that those people don't say, because I guess we assume it comes without saying. But even though I absolutely love it, we absolutely enjoy what we do, and this is absolutely like the best thing, it doesn't, again, mean it has the same qualities of every work, basically. We just like doing it. So it most like it's work that doesn't have this resentment of feeling like, oh, I'd rather do something else instead. This is where those feelings of like you're working hard, you're getting tired, you're putting your discipline and everything in. This is condition when the feeling becomes unbearable. But if you're doing something that you really like, it can energize you. So I feel that some people, some artists who are potentially struggling with motivation, are lacking this understanding what art really is. And every time they actually get to do art and they get to create, they feel like either they're doing something wrong or it's not theirs because, oh no, it's hard. It is hard. It's work. You're spending a lot of hours doing something. It's work. Yeah. You have to have discipline. You have to be willing to work. It's not something that you just sit and you're blissfully zoning out and you're enjoying it and you cannot stop and this is so amazing and you're so inspired, you don't notice how hours go by. It's so amazing, and it's you know, this high emotion, it's really being like so consumed by inspiration. No, this is what artists like me tend to talk about. Like, not talking about this inspiration part, but this is what we talk about, because we don't see the point of talking about, you know, work part, because it's obviously there, and what's the point of talking about it? Everybody knows about it. And also, this is also not what I want to talk about, because why would talk about something that is not your favorite part? You want to talk about your favorite part. And also in media overall, this idea of inspiration presented super crazy. And I feel a lot of artists too. There's some successful artists who have this idea of inspiration that well, a lot of artists that I respect and I really love, they don't tend to have this idea. But there is some that talk in a way like, oh, the muse just, took me over and I did it. But then muse wasn't visiting me for hours and hours and like days and la la la. People who are more meta speaking about this, it can get confusing. And also the way it is portrayed in movies or cartoons or stuff like this, like in entertainment, is it always portrayed as creating art is just this mystical moment of, just really it's almost like a trip. This is how people tend to portray it. And it has aspects of that. It is to some degree that, but it's not only that. Like the work doesn't go away. When I'm working on something and I'm drawing something that I love, which is almost everything that I draw, I never forget that I'm working. It's never the thing that, sometimes I draw longer, sometimes I do notice less how the time goes by, sometimes I'm better in the mood, but usually I still get tired. I want to drink water. I'm feeling hungry. I want to distract myself a little bit. I got to stand up and play with my dog a little bit. I want to stretch my back a little bit. It's more normal, and I think it's more healthy way of creating rather than being so consumed that you don't do anything and it just doing on one work. It's pretty extreme way and it's not the norm. So I feel every time people are trying to do something, they imagine something that art is not, that they're going to take the pencil or the pen in their hands and they're going to start drawing and it's going to take them over and they're going to be so inspired, it's going to be so amazing. But this is not that. And when they notice that it is not that, they either feel that they're doing something wrong or they immediately lose interest in doing something. And fair enough, it might be also, it's super normal that it's just not their thing. They're just not willing to put all this discipline in. They're not willing to just keep going. And for me, what I notice is also that your dedication to the project and this moment when you're really in the flow, when you're really creating, it's really flowing nicely and whatever, like most of what you're doing really looks good, like you're drawing things and they look good. That's kind of being in the flow, in the right state. It doesn't happen to the beginning of when you start working. It's getting later on. So you have to stick with it. And you're going to start working and you're going to spend some time drawing and then you're going to get into the mode. So I'm gonna return to this, but actually now I'm starting to create this effect and I want to actually talk about this effect a little bit. We're gonna get back to motivation thing, but so this effect, you saw me opening a file really quickly. This is a file that I created as a combination. I kind of use what I do for my day job. I work in VFX industry. I create concept art and matte painting, background textures. This is what I'm doing for movies, for visual effects, but basically there I use some technique that I'm using where I'm creating concept art. Sometimes we not always get concept art like, oh, draw the concept art for this monster, draw the concept art for this character. Sometimes we get tasks like draw the concept art of this magical explosion or draw the concept art of this exhaust fume from a rocket. It's like a space magical fantasy rocket, I don't know. So we can have to create this like visual effects, like light effects or something like this, and we have to come up with them and create this concept that then goes to other departments and they actually create animated real like version of it. So I created this effects file while working on chapter 5. I really combined several things. I combined like bubbles, some frost, some glow from the sun or something like this. Also sparks from I forgot how you call it. Not like a drill, but like the thing you melt metal together with. Like it's like a construction worker thing. So I created this effects for most of the magic that those guys are doing. So, and there are several stages of how I'm applying this magic. So as you already can see, first of all, I was just using something to lit up the ground because this effect is glowy. So it's gonna create light. I didn't want to draw light separately because I feel like if I draw light separately, like as I'm drawing, like for example, pants or shirts or hands or faces. I didn't want to draw it in there, because if I want to just move the effects a little bit, I already have a drawing that already has like the light baked in. I want to create the light path using adjustment layers. So I'm creating adjustment layer for brightness, for color, and I create like really bright brightness, and then I create mask and I paint stuff over. So I paint light on top of the grass, I paint light on top of the clothes. It's basically how this effect casts light. As you can see, this is what I'm starting with. I'm starting with drawing kind of this glow first. Before I'm adding the effects, I kind of draw the overall glowness from this effect. To me, because the effect is so bright and the environment is so dark, I really feel like I need to first like prepare the ground before I put this VFX in. So this is kind of how I like starting it and building it slowly. And I actually, this files like with VFX tend to be very, very heavy, because I add a lot of layers. It's not just effects layer, it's also like all the layers for the adjustment, for brightness and whatnot. And yeah, so basically what I'm trying to do with this effect, this is the effect for shield. Like this is kind of the shield that they can create. It's called Seidel in the story, but basically that's it. And I have this effect showing up, as I said, in chapter 5 and in chapter 6 in the end of chapter 6. Both are out, actually. You can go check them out. The link is down below. But yeah, so this is overall what I'm doing with this effect. And also I'm not just dropping this in, I like to customize my effects. As you can see, I have several layers with these effects, and I like to layer them. And as you can see, this is one of the brightness layer full on, but I like to layer them. I like to combine them. I like to add mask to my effects and paint a little bit away. Like kind of, you can paint with mask and you can paint them literally. They're there, you make them zero opacity, and then you paint the opacity basically. And because I like the consistency of the element, the one that I created, but I still like to custom tailor it for a particular scene, because I don't know, it's just, isn't that how you want to do it? If I were to draw, like this is what I was mentioning about drawing light on the characters itself with adjustment layers rather than actually paint this. If I were to draw the standalone painting, if I just a cover of standalone painting, then I would paint light as I was painting the character. I was painted in the character. I wouldn't use adjustment layers. I feel like painting it with I feel like overall painting light with brightness, just some with the brightness adjusted, just using Photoshop settings like brightness level, hue saturation, stuff like this. I don't want to paint with like that and create light with that, because you can tell I feel like it's more of a beginner tip. No shade for the beginners. Whatever works, and you do you, and you develop whenever you want. But personally, for me, I just feel like if you professionally, seriously, as you're an artist, you paint the light in. Besides, this is the only way it will actually look natural. For this thing, as painted this light with adjustment layers, you can still see that it's not really natural. There's a lot of freedoms that I don't have. For example, if I already have like a darker shade on the clothes or something, I cannot really fix it with like brightness layer and make it look right. I don't know. So this is kind of something that I want to keep in mind and just let you know, this is what I like to do. And for my page, I like to create this brightness on the characters if I have some bright effect, but it's not ideal way. I think I'm fine with using it for the comic frame, but I would not use it for full-on drawing. And also another thing that I'm using for this effect, I'm using a lot of color correction for this particular panel, because I also using darkening. I want to darken, kind of create this vignette on the edges and to just reinforce the effect overall. And also I am doing a lot of movements here with this effect because I haven't used this effect full on. And as I'm creating it here, I'm also setting up the look of this effect for different pages to come. That's why you see me actually widgeting a lot with this effect and just trying it on and off and doing little different settings. You can see me going back and forth. I will start doing something, then I redo it. And this is exactly why, is because I haven't used it in a long time. And I'm still figuring out how I'm going to be using effects in my story. Before, when I was planning to draw my story, I was drawing it in chapter 2, I thought to just paint all of those effects. But again, this is a situation. I don't want them to be too custom, too different from page to page. I want to be them super recognizable. It's harder to do with painting. So I'm using specific effect. And in this particular panel, I'm setting it up and I'm going to be using it throughout the scene several times. So yeah, so this is all for the effect, and then I will go back and comment on what I'm doing again if something interesting is going on. I mean, I'm sure everything that is going on is interesting, but if something that is specifically worth mentioning. And I want to get back to my motivational thing. So as I said, a lot of the time people just expect art to be something different than it is, and it's my fault, it's fault of other artists, it's fault of the media, and that it tricks people, and when they start working they think something is wrong. And that's maybe one of the reasons why people, or maybe you, are struggling with motivation, is because it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Don't go in art expecting to be easy. Expect it to be a rewarding hard work. That's, I think, how I would put it the best. So this is one thing that I notice blocking people when they're trying to be productive and create more stuff. But what I personally also notice, that another factor that had contributed to this, is that people don't this is the kind of, I mentioned that they're following inspiration, and I think this is absolutely the wrong thing to follow. And again, this is something media tells us, and again, something is presented by probably other artists. Like, there is a lot of emphasis that is put on inspiration. And I remember as I was growing up, and I was artist from the beginning of my life, literally, I just didn't understand why everybody's talking so fancy about inspiration. I was like, well, I don't understand. You just sit and draw. You don't need inspiration, really. And I have video about inspiration. I will link it over here somewhere. And so in that video, I'm talking that inspiration is not really the most important part in creating. Inspiration is just such a short feeling that is not going to help you at all to complete anything. Inspiration is like a starter. Thinking about inspiration like an ignition. And it might be just literally you have some idea or something, you thought about something interesting, or you notice something interesting and you want to implement it in your art. You want to create art based on it. And that's cool. It's great. First of all, not all art starts with inspiration at all. A lot of the art just starts with idea, with concept, with plan, with thinking what I want to create, just very pragmatic, logical thinking that in the end starts inspiration and starts your creativity going, and something interesting comes out of it. I'm a pretty logical person. I'm very rarely driven by inspiration. Inspiration is just the beginning. It's just the spark. It's just the first step. And that's the purpose of inspiration, really, nothing else. So it's sparks that last just a few amount, like this very small amount of time, and it's just for you to start. And inspiration is not something that will keep you going, and it's not something that finishes projects. It's just not the point of inspiration at all. And if you rely on inspiration to continue sitting in your chair and drawing, or I don't know, well, maybe you have a standing desk, it's not gonna work. You cannot rely on inspiration. This is just not what inspiration is meant for. And especially like most of the art projects, again, it comes back like art already is work, and you cannot be driven by inspiration to finish this work. You have to have some other emotion that you're working with here, or some another mental state that you are tapping into to complete something. If you think about, like, you're looking at how I'm drawing, and I'm assuming from recording my pages for some time that it takes approximately from 5 to 8 hours for me to complete a page. It's quite a lot of time. And plus add that this is just like 100% hours drawing. There's a lot of hours in between for me sleeping, living my life, eating, breathing, and as I'm drawing also I'm making pauses. So it's overall takes days to complete something like this. It's a very long amount of time, and you have to have something else that keeps you sitting there. For me personally, is that feeling of just being calm, being at peace, being almost in meditative state, being very relaxed, and just feeling good. Just, this is just the feeling of just doing something that you like doing, something very relaxing. So it's almost like, some people, when they go into this relaxing zone, something is just their relaxing process. What are you doing for relaxing? To me, creating art, when I'm creating page by page, is relaxing. Like, look at this, like I'm drawing a leg. Do you think inspiration has anything to do with me completing this leg? Do you think I'm just sitting there and saying, oh my god, I'm so damn inspired to draw this leg, this leg is the best thing I've ever drawn, oh my god, look at this heel. I don't know, maybe actually there is fetishes around toes, I don't know, I'm not that person at all, so I don't find any of this particularly exciting. I might get excited about like anatomy and folds, but what keeps me drawing this leg for maybe 30 minutes is the fact that I'm just relaxed. I'm just in the zone. I'm just chilling. I'm not looking for some strong emotion that keeps me doing that. I'm looking for calm emotion to do that, and inspiration is absolutely the wrong thing to look for when you want to complete something. Find this more calm, relaxed emotion. And another thing that is important to mention when creating art that also might disrupt the feeling of motivation that you might have is that, again, think about it, how much you have to create. You have to work hours and hours and hours to create a meaningful piece. For me personally, I have to work years and years and years to create my comic, and I have to work months and months and months to create just one chapter. And that's the reality of things. You spend a lot of time creating this. So it's also links to the idea of inspiration, how inspiration being completely useless. But it also, its own complete topic is that you can't think too much about big picture, and you obviously have to keep it in mind. But as I'm drawing this page, it will be really harmful for me to think about my whole comic, the final battle, how everything is gonna go, and just thinking of how much I want to draw this final battle, and just thinking about my whole comic overall, the whole plot, like big reveals, who is gonna do what, and all of that things. And it's really counterproductive, because thinking about the cool moments of your story or the big picture of your story all the time in this manner of wishing to work on that, on the cool parts, can easily make you really demotivated about what you're drawing now. Because again, imagine like seeing I'm drawing this grass, and that's what I'm doing. Again, this footage is sped up, but I'm doing it for maybe 30-40 minutes. And if I would be just thinking, oh my god, I just can't wait till I get to this epic battle in chapter 25, while I'm drawing this grass for hours in chapter 8, it's and the chapter 25 I will get in like several years. It can mess with your mind. You have to be fine with where you are at and not be impatient to get to the coolest part, the culmination of the story, all of that. You have to go into process of creating, knowing that it's not just inspiration, and it's not just this amazing part. Will you draw this amazing part of your piece or of your comic, or writing this amazing part of your book? It's just, this is a small part. You have to treat every second spent on working on your project the same, and you have to treat it the same. It shouldn't be you striving to get to this high, because again, high is not really something that finishes things. And also, I wouldn't say there is a high in a very healthy production of art, because high is just such a short moment. And if you are building up, like for example, imagine I'm drawing this grass build, and I'm only thinking about this build up of me drawing this epic battle scene. Guess what? Will I get to this battle scene? Me drawing this battle scene will be consistent with me drawing someone's leg, sewing someone's knee, drawing someone's hair, drawing little grass again. Like, that's what will it take to draw even the high thing, because high things, the only high, like, I think it's also something that maybe happens throughout like this time in our existence when we watch movies, and yeah, high moment in movie or high like cool moment in the book or in a cartoon, it lasts a short amount of time and can last maybe 5 minutes. Well, actually it's pretty long, like maybe like a minute. Some epic moments, I don't know, think Avengers, which one was like was with Thanos when they were fighting Thanos, when there was this moment of Avengers assemble, all of them coming together. We will not talk about the fact that I think this movie is stupid. And they originally failed and Thanos snapped everybody out because they're all idiots, because they're all adult grown-ass people who just can't, talk normally and act like children, and that's why half of the population of the world got destroyed. I don't feel sympathy for it. I don't know. It's a rant for another time. I think those movies a little bit too simple and not clever at all and very simplistic, and they teach us the wrong way to look at life overall. We just like to see black and white, and I don't know, it's like it teaches us very strange things. But this is a rant for another time. We're not going to spend time talking about this now. But as an example of that moment, imagine that cool moment that you saw there that was so awesome, that lasted literally 1 minute when all these characters came together. But and you get used to the fact that those cool moments, they're so cool, and it's like you're so fast to create those moments are so fast. But creating those moments are not fast. I think just because there's so much media around, it's harder for us sometimes to think as a creator only. We start thinking as a consumer of media as well, and consuming media and creating media is two different things. And as we're consuming some high moment and some cool moment in the movies, it's a very short thing, but to create this one, it takes a long time, and it just doesn't feel the same way to create it than to observe it. And also it kind of can be combined with a lot of artists. Usually when you're just starting, this idea of creating the story you love, like create the story you would read, create the comic you would read. And I disagree with that, because the creation and the consumption of media is completely two different processes. They're so different that the media that you consume and media that you like producing can be completely different media. And when it comes from the idea of create something that you would like to consume, it usually just means that you are creating some self-policing stuff, and actually if you actually try drawing something that you really want to see, you will notice that you totally lose motivation almost immediately, because you think that if you draw it, you almost will consume it. So you almost as you create the media, you will be also consuming this very media, and it's just not that. Just the speed of production doesn't match the speed of consumption. So that's just the whole thing. I think like the amount of media that we have now, it's great. It's amazing. There is so many creative works out there, but I think the fact that we consume so much media can really affect us in that way, that we start thinking about our own creative process as if it should be as fast and easy as consuming the media like this. But it's not that. Creating media is always difficult. If you think about just, for example, the cool moments in Avengers, it took years, probably maybe a couple of years, for hundreds of people to create, and there was a lot of probably notes back and forth. If anything about VFX industry where I'm working at, it probably was notes back and right, and then they reduced late night work, stresses, especially with Marvel stuff. I heard a lot that, it's hard on artists, and it's a lot. So basically, that's another thing that I wanted to point out, is that you cannot write those high emotions, you cannot draw for those high moments, and it's just not gonna take you far. And the idea is just to be calm. The idea is just to be calm, reasonable, and enjoy every step of the way and be present in the now. It's actually very funny because it's almost like a philosophy of life. You know, it's kind of comparable. If in life you want to get to some goal, and I'm roasting myself mostly here, I'm very goal-oriented person, like extremely, and I have to work on this every day. If I have this crazy goal that I want to achieve, my eyes are only on this goal, and I'm just going there, and I'm not even enjoying almost life on the way there. And when I get this goal, I have this moment of, yes, I did it. And then immediately I'm panicking and feeling that I need to have another goal right away. And then I look back and realize I didn't spend enough time just enjoying my life. I just flew past it. And that's just something that I noticed with art as well. The best key is just to be present where you are and enjoy every moment, because it's a long process. It takes time, it takes hard work, and you just will burn yourself out, and you will get to conclusion that it's just not worth it if you're gonna chase for this big goal, big moment in your story, because it's not worth it. It just isn't. Hours and days and months and years of work, they're not worth it to draw one certain scene. That's just it's my opinion, but I also think that my opinion in this case is very close to the reality of things, because it's not worth it. It's true. And you don't want to be disappointed or demotivated. And if you are demotivated when you have this mentality, you are absolutely justified to be. I would be too, if this is where my focus would be. So this is another point that I wanted to mention. And another thing with productivity. So this is all a lot of things that are mental in our head, that are blocking us and stopping us, and all of the thoughts and how we view things that are preventing us to work productively. So this is just one aspect of it, is more of a mental one. Another one is more practical, is how you actually start working, the amount of time necessary to complete something. And this is also time of habit. You have to have habit of doing that, and it should be part of your priority. It shouldn't be like the main priority of your life. Even for me, I'm pretty passionate about my comic, about my art, but it's not necessarily the main priority of my life. Several things are main priority of my life, and there's a balance of them that I want to have, but it is one of the priorities. And to me, it is important to always find time to draw it. And I have a video when I'm talking about drawing every day, and I'm actually not sure that it is out yet, but it will be coming out soon. And the point of this video is that drawing every day does work, at least for me, but I also think it's overall a very good practice, just because when you're doing something every day, you make certain things and certain action mechanical and very easy for you to repeat. For example, I personally notice if I have break from drawing for, let's say, 2-3 days, I do notice that the speed of my drawing goes down, and it takes me a little bit more time to draw. And it's almost like my brain and my hands connection is not the fastest. Almost like I see something, I know, okay, I need it to be drawn this way. And then it takes a little bit of a brain power to figure out how I should move my hands and what colors should I grab to make it look this way. Whereas when I'm drawing every day, I just see something, I think, oh, it should be different shape, and my hand's already doing everything, and I don't have to pay attention and really like consciously think about how to do it. It's just because just practice and repeating certain things every day, they do create almost, I don't know, neuron connection in your brain. I don't know, something just flows really, really smoothly. And this is something that you want to consider. If you have a project that you want to complete, you want to keep going with this. You want to set aside time to work on it. You don't want just to do it and then think, oh, you know, I'll do it whenever, whatever. I mean, you could, but again, if we're talking about productivity and actually finishing things, you have to have certain plans where you can do this. For example, for me, every time I finish work, the moment I finish work during the weekdays, my first thought is, okay, I finished work, I can work on my comic a little bit. And then on the weekends, also when I wake up, I grab coffee. I have those kind of plan, like grab coffee, I go for do exercise, I bike every day, and then I go work on my comic. I like working on my comic on the evenings most of the time, but on the weekends this is the first kind of activity that I want to do. So I have those time blocks, like if I'm not doing anything else, this is default activity that I'm doing. You don't have to be this devoted to your art stuff, by the way, as I am, but I just think it's good to have this thought when you can do it. And overall, a lot of the time when I talk to people who just don't feel motivated enough, they almost, how to describe that, they almost say, well, yeah, I'm not that dedicated. And it's confusing because you can tell that they like creating, but when it comes to actually creating and you tell them, well, you have to actually then, this time when you finish work, instead of watching Netflix, you might want to actually work. And they're like, oh yeah, but I'm too lazy. I'm not actually that dedicated. It's not that important. And it's weird because it's a combination. They do want to work on it. At the same time, they almost tell themselves that it's not important. And I also think it's something that happens in the head, telling that art is not important. My creativity is not important. Me creating art is not important. And I think there's two things that are at play in this moment. First is that, somebody in your life made you believe that your art is not important and your creativity is not important. Maybe in your family it was never supported. Maybe anything that doesn't bring like stable money wouldn't be considered important or worth using your time for. It definitely happens. I mean, not the case in my family. Also because I always had a business approach to my art. Maybe that's the reason. But it's just the idea in your brain that art is not important. And every time you actually get the opportunity to draw, like you're literally either drawing or watching Netflix. And, watching Netflix, if you don't watch it, it's not like you're doing something wrong to your life, But people still feel like art is not as important. So I feel it can come from some belief from the family or something like this. But also, I feel, again, the art is a serious thing. To get something done, you have to work hard, and if it's not done, if you didn't complete your work, it doesn't exist. So it's almost like you either finish it or you don't finish it, and you kind of wasted your time because you have nothing to show for. And I think here there is also a lot of mental blocks that people have. It's almost they are afraid that they don't have what it takes to finish it, and then it makes sense to be like a waste of time, because if you don't believe that you can finish it, starting something that you cannot finish and something that can only exist and pay off if it is finished, it sounds like a waste of time. So then you might be ask yourself why you can't finish something. Why do you think you cannot finish it? And all of the time I notice it has to do with people just doubting themselves, not thinking they have what it takes, not thinking that they're good at it, or if they finish it, it would be bad, stupid, people gonna laugh at them, that it's just useless to me. Because for example, I have a particular friend in mind, is that if I start working, before I start working, as I'm thinking of my idea on something like this, the idea sounds interesting. I sound like an interesting and creative person. I sound to myself and others like I have this many good ideas and now so creative. But then these people never wrote anything, and those people never created or a comic or drew anything. So it seems almost like the fear of actually drawing this, because if you actually go and draw or actually go and write your great and interesting idea, as you put it on paper, you realize you don't have necessary skill to tell it right. You just don't have it because you never practice. It's not like you're bad at it, by no means. But in order to be good at something, you have to practice and you have to work on this. And it's sometimes easier to just have the idea of, I could be this good writer, I have these good ideas. I could really write a good story. Come from there to actually writing a good story, and it's a huge journey. And I'm pretty sure people who are thinking like this, they understand that, because they know that they can say that I could have been a great writer. I could have this great story, because they could have, like, that's correct. But if they actually start writing, that start practicing, the first thing gonna be shit. It's just standard procedure of initiation into anything. The first thing that you do is not gonna be good because you don't know how to do it, especially something this complicated and nuanced as creating a story. It's difficult stuff, and you have to learn this. It has a lot of moving pieces. You have to do it several times to get like the idea of it, how to do it, what works, what doesn't. So when you start working on this, and then you will face with the fact that your stuff is not good. And this is also something that people don't want to admit. A lot of people don't want to even start creating art because they know that the first thing that they create would not be good. And that's valid. It is scary because it is in the sense not motivating. But but again, I think it's coming from the idea that there's a conflicting idea that the art is easy and these things should come out easy. And if you have this expectation, but then you start and it's not easy at all, or, it's not easy to make it good, then it creates this disappointment, and it is very discouraging feeling, of course. So expectation should not be then that it is easy. Expectation should not be, I could have been that. It doesn't mean anything. If you actually want to do it, you do it. And you have to practice to make it happen. And again, come to the fact that this is hard work. So, this is something, it is more mental thing that's going on. I feel like a lot of stuff that has to do with motivation is really mental, and it's like your own thoughts that's stopping you. And I have one more tip, but I want to focus a little bit on what I'm actually drawing, just, actually talk about my drawing in this drawing session podcast. So this particular panel is actually very fun for me to draw. I wanted to quickly talk about it. So in this, you cannot really see from the sketchy stuff, but this character, he has this double earring on his ear, and there's a chain that is hanging between those two earring like hoops. Which one of them? I don't know. But like he has like two earrings, and there's a chain hanging between the two, and the pigeon is pulling him on this chain, kind of pulling his ear and jolting him, not jolting him away, but basically this character, he has this paralysis thing when he has flashbacks of his past, and they're a little bit traumatizing, and by a little bit they're a lot traumatizing, and he kind of goes in this almost stupor type of thing. He is very distracted, he's consumed by the memory, and in this situation, he actually is in a dangerous situation. So the pigeon, he's on the shoulders. This pigeon, if you didn't check my story, they're pretty sentient. They can talk. They're pretty smart creatures in my story. Pigeon kind of jolts him with this, like by pulling his earring, and kind of distracting him to the pain and discomfort, and make him get back to his senses and stop being in this state of stupor. So this was very funny to draw, just because it's not something that you draw often when you have a character that is has this face of pain when somebody is pulling him on the earring. So it was overall just fun for me to draw. And also it's a fun story with this guy and his earring. When I was writing this story as a novel, obviously, like, the character looked the same. He didn't look at all in the novel. He was just written, but the appearance I didn't change. Like, appearance of this guy is the same. And when I was writing a novel, I remember describing him as you would, like, you look at this character that I'm drawing, and I would just describe what I'm seeing, and this is how I would describe this character. And I would mention his earring, and I would describe his earring the way his earring is, like saying there's two hoops and there's a chain between it, and this golden earring on left ear. And my editor it was very funny because I took my time to describe the earring the first time I was describing the story when Tsukai seeing this character, and it happens in chapter 2. It happens in chapter 2, and it happens in chapter 2 in the novel as well. It's just described from Tsukai's perspective. She's describing this guy with long black hair, and he has this this earring situation on his left ear. And my editor, she didn't have, because she probably didn't have enough confidence in what I'm doing here, because she was asking me very gently, it's like, Christina, are you sure we need to describe his earring? Is it an important plot point? And she was kind of implying that why I'm spending so much time describing the earring, is the earring important, because she thought I'm just being self-indulgent author and just over describing weird things about my character. Like, you can mention that the character has earring, but you don't have to, if you're really specifically describing the earring the first time you see the character, I don't know, at some points, like, I think it felt some in that point of my story like unnecessary information. And I remember, was asking me, is it so important to describe this guy's earring? And to me it was, because his earring has meaning. It's almost like a clan earring, and he actually doesn't know what his earring means. He doesn't know. He will find out more about his bloodline and kind of who he is, and I already draw him a little bit different towards other Chondros. Chondros is his race of creatures, the ones who have black hair, those pointy ears, 2 toes on each leg with like claws and tail. That's kind of his race, and I already drawing him specifically different. Like, his tail looks a little bit different. Something in his appearance, just, he has a specific bloodline basically that he's not aware about, and he will eventually, like in book 3, we will talk more about it. And the earring that he is wearing, because in this world a lot of people are wearing earrings, it's like a relic of the past. His specific earring design is very traditional earring that actually means something, and a lot of earrings that are presented around are just people having their own modern twist on the ancient earring that don't even know what earrings meant. Anywho, his earring was important, and I remember it was a funny thing that my editor didn't feel very confident in me just spending so much time describing the earring. She almost thought, like, Christina, why are you over describing this character? And it's valid that she did that. I actually, thinking back, I could have described his earring later on, just mentioned that he has earring in the beginning, but I felt like I had to describe everything, and it's super funny. And I actually remember answering to her because she was asking, is it an important plot point? And I said to her as a joke, I said, well, it is important, but it's not that crazy important that, for example, he will be falling off the cliff and will hang on of his earring and will not fall down because, this earring saved him or something like this. Some stupid stuff like this. So to me, it's actually funny to draw somebody actually pulling him on his earring. So his earring actually being not like a plot device, but yeah, kind of like a plot device in this particular situation. This is what Pigeon does to distract him from his memories. But yes, this is just a fun thing I decided I'd mention, because this is when I was drawing this panel, it's just funny, and it's just, I like drawing unusual emotional reactions overall, and it's just not something that you draw all the time for the comic. Is your character squinting in pain because somebody's pulling on his earring. And also for this particular character is not an unusual emotional, like, it's not a usual facial expression. So this guy is actually, he's interesting to draw his face because he is the character who tries to hide his emotions, and his face is most of the time, so when he is in control of his face and he's in control overall of his body, basically he is conscious, awake, and not shocked or surprised. His face will be pretty much emotionless, looking very calm, very relaxed. But every time when he doesn't have control over his face, for example, when he's sleeping or where he's unconscious, or if he's shocked, startled, scared, something like this, when he just forgets to use his face or just can't, this is where his emotions come out in a very extreme way. So to me, it's always funny. So his range of emotion goes from like poker face to some extreme emotion that is very often fear, because this character has a lot of fear in him. He has, stuff in his past, and he's pretty vulnerable actually emotionally. And but he controls his emotions. Like he exactly because of this, he tries his hardest to control his emotions. That's why his face is interesting to draw. It's either he's like he'll have fear and worry in his face and concern, and he, like, his face actually looks scared, and then next panel he would get control back of his face and his face will become calm again, even though drawing his eyes a little bit that he's concerned for his safety maybe. So I don't know, and this particular emotion is not something that I get to draw a lot on him. This is very expressive face. This is something that I would imagine drawing on Sakai more often than on Kuroi. Sakai has very expressive face, and this guy's face is more calm and reserved. This is just fun for me. This is just I wanted to mention as I'm drawing it. And it's also challenging emotion to draw. I actually think that I wanted to point out, every time you draw strong emotions, when you draw them, it's actually very tricky thing to do, because if you draw them super correctly, if you have a photograph open that you can look at to make things look realistic, sometimes emotion can make the face look scary. That's like a little ugly, distorted, because I feel it's unless you draw in super hyper realism, extreme realism, this is when you can draw emotion exactly how it is, all the folds that created on the face when we emote and whatnot. But if you're not working in the style, you have to simplify the emotion a little bit, or it will just read a little ugly. I don't know what's the science behind this, I have no idea, but this is just something that I noticed. And emotions, for example, like this, when the character is squinting or frowning, or especially when the mouth distorts in somewhat pain and you have this folds around the mouth, this is something that you have to pay attention to and make sure you simplify it a little bit and don't get to be like too true to emotions. So this is something that I think you have to pay attention to. So this is just a fun panel, and just wanted to mention some things about this panel. And so now back to motivation thing, and I want to quickly have just one more tip that I already mentioned, I think, in some motivational video that I said I want to elaborate on this a little bit more. And this tip is just to, when you're drawing, make drawing not the only thing that you do. And I see a lot of people like talking a lot of crap about millennials or Gen Z or whatnot. They're saying, oh, those people have like short attention span, they're so stupid, they just can't stay focused on something. And like this generation is completely ruined by media and computers and smartphones. And I just think that it's just such a ridiculous claim to make, because it's not like it's harder to focus on one thing for a long period of time. It's like our brain actually trained to focus on several things at the same time. And this is not better or worse, and it's definitely not specifically worse. It means our brain just wired to jump between things a lot of the time, and it's easier to do several things at once. This is actually amazing tool that we can do. And in the past they would talk about people who can do several things at once. Like I read in some historical books about Napoleon that he would do several things at once. He would do this while doing this. He will have meetings while writing documents. He will it would describe like a huge advantage. So I'm not sure why people are crapping on millennials and Gen Zs, but it is for sure that we can take in information differently and just adjust to that, and don't necessarily work the way that old school artists would, lock yourself in your artistic room and just work there and don't come out for days until the piece is complete. This is not gonna work. It might work for some of you, but for me it definitely is not gonna work, and for a lot of other people it's not gonna work. So adjust and make sure you create something that works for you. When I'm working, I personally cannot work if working is the only thing I do. I need my brain to be focused on several things at once for me to be productive. And this is something that's happened in my day job. And I would talk to my supervisor and I would say, hey, if you give me one shot and you tell to do this shot in one day, I will do the shot in one day. I will try and work as hard as I can, but my mind would wonder, if you give me 2 shots, I will do 2 shots in one day. And just please give me several things at once. I don't know what it is, but my mind sometimes it needs to switch to another topic. And if another topic is also work, it's a win-win. So I do at work, I do several things at once, and I notice that I'm extremely productive like this. I do things with incredible speed. And this is the same thing that I'm doing with my comic. When I'm working on my comic, I need my brain to be also doing something else. So I usually watch YouTube and I listen to something, to audiobook or to lecture. So I need some information in my brain constantly. Just listening to music wouldn't cut it, because music doesn't have as much information for my brain to process. I feel again that my brain needs to do something else. Sometimes in very extreme situations, when my brain just feels like it needs to do as much things as possible, I have to overload my brain. I remember one time I was drawing my comic, watching a lecture, and dictating notes for the script for the next chapter all at the same time. But it's like, it was extreme. It doesn't happen all the time. It's very rare occasion, but sometimes my brain just demands to work on several things at once. And also for me, what I notice why I work on different pages at the same time, I just like jumping between pages and panels. If I feel like I'm getting bored on one thing, I jump to another thing. And this is just very simple motivation tool that I want to share, is that accommodate to the way your attention works, accommodate to the way it's nice for you to work. If you are thriving the most and you get the most motivated and the most efficient with your work after you've been working for 20 minutes, then make sure you work at least 20 minutes. But if you notice that after 15 minutes your attention starts wandering and it's harder for you to stay focused on exactly one thing that you're doing, work with that and figure out the way how to make it work for you. What I do for myself, I jump to another page, I jump to another chapter. And for me, not another chapter, sorry, just another page, another panel. I stay within one chapter in my scene. But another thing that I like doing personal that always worked for me, even when I was writing my novel, this story is a novel, I would paint something because I was still drawing. But then if I feel a little bit, not like stuck, like I feel like I'm losing the momentum in painting, I will jump to writing, and then I would write. And then if I felt stuck in writing, I would go back to drawings, just changing creative activities that I'm doing. Now it's also working great for me because I can switch between different creative things that I'm doing. I can be working on my comic, then I can go record the video, or I can go edit the video, I can record the podcast, I can go and manage stuff on my Patreon, I can create thumbnails, and also I have a bunch of freelance that I'm doing at all points. Like even now I have 3 freelance gigs that I'm also doing and I have to deliver in 2 days. But for me it really helps, but that's me. I'm just using myself as an example to what exactly works for you. And also what I like to multitasking, like for example, I'm recording this podcast as I'm watching, I'm seeing my own recording and I'm doing the voiceover. But then after voiceover is over, I'm gonna connect it to the drawing and I'm gonna start playing it while I'm drawing. So we'll be drawing and listening to my own podcast. And if I hear something that I need to cut out, I will go and cut it out. And again, I'm combining 2 things and it makes me feel like I'm super productive and it keeps my brain occupied enough exactly for it to function its best. I cannot, by the way, do it with normal videos because there I cut out a lot, but just this podcast is more chillax. So, I just take away crazy pauses or my sneezes or my yawns, as I mentioned at the beginning. So this is another advice that I wanted to give you. Occupy your brain, work with what your brain naturally does, learn your working patterns. And this is just knowing yourself and knowing how productivity works for you. Again, it takes practice like everything. Another thing why it helps me, for example, as I said, like working on something like a comic or even on a full-on painting, it's a long process and you cannot be just, driven by inspiration. The best thing you can do is actually just interest yourself with something else. Just roll some video on YouTube that you want to watch. So next time don't go to your computer and open your Photoshop because you have to feel this inspiration and calling to draw. Maybe you just go there to watch the video that you want to watch, or you can even roll a TV show while you're doing this. Find other things to get yourself to the chair, because all of the time with a notice, the most important thing is to start. You have to start working, and as you start working and as you're working, you realize, oh, it's actually flowing really nicely. I'm actually really enjoying it. And the most difficult part sometimes is to start. And I notice it's kind of the same like with workouts. Once you're in the gym, or once you're running, once you're biking, once you're already doing it, you enjoy in the moment. But sometimes it's really hard to just get out there. And sometimes you just have to not think about it and just get yourself out there, and also get to your senses while you're already in the gym, already on the bike, already on the, in the park running. So the starting part is something that you might want to, get extra help from media and whatnot, and other things that interest you to call you to work. This is kind of my 2 cents on motivation, and overall I feel like I can create another video that it will be an hour long on motivation alone, just because it's such a huge topic. We like to call it motivation. You have these videos on YouTube, it's like how to get motivated, 5 steps to get motivated. It's motivational speech. Motivation is such a complex topic. It's so much more than any of this. A lot of things about motivation is really what motivates you. What's the point? Why are you doing this? You have to have purpose for doing this. If you don't have purpose for doing this, it's only reasonable to expect you not wanting to do that. Like, if and that can open the whole can of worms mentally. Do you not believe honestly that it will work out? If you're drawing something and you feel it's useless, yeah, that's, of course you're going to be not motivated. I wouldn't be either if I didn't know that if I'm drawing something and it's going to give me nothing in life at all, nobody going to care about my art. I can never be able to finish my art, and it's pointless. Yeah, then I would lose motivation. Even I'm pretty passionate about art. Yeah, even I would potentially lose it. So it has to be a lot of things. You need to know what is there for you. You need to know that you can get to the point that you can get something back. And you need to learn to work on it and chip away from the project that you have. Slowly, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. And you have to enjoy this hour. You have to not hate this hour. And if there's something in your working process that you don't like, that pisses you off, that makes you upset, there is so many things why this can happen. Maybe because it's just what you want to be, and what you want your project to be is just so far from what it is now, and you feel like this is a gap that you cannot cover ever, and this gets you frustrated. You have to work on this if this is the case. You have to decide if you even want to try, if it's worth it for you. Or on the other hand, it might be just something that you just need to learn more. Maybe it is just growing pains. For me, this was the case. I would be very frustrated and hating what I'm doing. And it was exactly when I was very close to making a progress and started drawing better. It's just this feeling when my brain already knows that it can be drawn better, but my hands cannot get me there yet. Or my brain knows how the better version of this should look like, but it doesn't not know yet how to get there. And there's so many reasons, there's so many things, and it's very complex and layered topic, and it's very connected to a lot of individual things and individual fears, individual beliefs about art overall, and what you want to do to this art. Also a lot of things like what you can look at, what genuinely motivates you in life. What is the motivational force? Is money motivational force? Is praise of other people is motivational force? There's no bad motivational force there. Like, I'm motivated by status. This is more than even money, and by purpose. I need to have something that has big purpose, that as I'm completing the task, I feel like I've done something important, something what I came to this life for. This is a very, woo-woo motivation, and not everybody has this. But another one is I'm motivated by status. If something that I do can improve my status in the society, this is what I like. To me, it's important to be good at what I do. That's why I work hard to be good at what I do. To me, again, it is pretty much a status thing. If I decide to do YouTube even, you might notice by my channel is very small, but I had like low production value videos in the very beginning just to start. But overall, to me, it's important that my videos look good. To me, I want to get it as good as possible just for the sake of my own feeling like I did it right, I did it good, this is the level that I'm presenting. So, and I'm very early in, my YouTube thing, got the camera, the lens, the microphone, all the things. And to me, it's worth investing. So this is my other motivation. And again, there is no bad or good motivation. Whatever actually motivates you, it's good to know that. And then you can look at the project that you are doing and approach it from the point of how to tailor it to your motivation. For example, just drawing or just writing doesn't make sense for you, but earning money makes sense for you. So if you approach this as a business strategy and you approach it as something to make a good buck with, then all of a sudden you are motivated. Or if praise of other people is important for you and people thinking that you're so talented and so special, again, why the hell not? Then you can turn it around and your art can be focused on that. Or maybe you're motivated on making people happy, and this is what you will be doing. So this is so many things that can motivate you, and motivation is a big topic. And I hope with today's drawing session, with this huge episode of Super Long, I hope I maybe potentially helps you with some ideas about motivation, because I'm passionate about talking to people and making sure they get to create art that they want to create. I really want to give people all knowledge that I have and accumulated to make people create art. This brings me my personal joy. So yeah, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much guys for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one.